The stars are right, and that means it's time for another episode of The Whisper in Darkness. I'm your host, the Man from Lang. Thank you very much for joining me today. On this episode, we are continuing with our look at the Investigators in the Edge of the Earth Investigator expansion. This time around, we're going to take a look at the Rogue/Secret Investigator in the box, Monterey Jack. There are spoilers throughout if you care about that sort of thing. If you enjoy what you hear, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Before we get started, I'd like to thank the patrons of this channel for their tremendous support. The Arkham Horror LCG community is amazing, and these people have gone above and beyond to bring you content like these Investigator reviews. If you'd like to support the channel's goals and see your name on this list, head over to patreon.com, sign up for a tier of your choice, and claim your rewards. That would be awesome. Special thanks to Coleman Rochitty for the amazing art that graces the channel, Nicole Fiscus for the new Whisper in Darkness logo that graces the podcast, and Nate Lost in Time and Space for the intro as well as the overlays. Thank you very much. I couldn't do it without you. Without further ado, let's get started. We are back with our look at the Investigators in the Edge of the Earth Investigator expansion. This time around, we're going to take a look at Monterey Jack, the Rogue Investigator. Monterey Jack is the archaeologist. He has 1 willpower, 4 intellect, 2 combat, and 5 agility. He has the Wayfarer trait. As a response, at the end of your turn, if you started this round 1 location away from your current location, either gain 1 resource or draw 1 card. If you started this round 2 or more locations away, do both instead. His Elder Sign ability is +1, and if you started this round 1 or more locations away from your current location, you gain 1 resource or draw 1 card. He has 8 health and 6 sanity. Now, we knew Monterey Jack was coming all the way back in the Forgotten Age. There is a little spoiler for him in the pamphlet that came with that said he is the expedition leader. As a child of the 80s, I have been looking forward to Monterey Jack's arrival for quite some time. Any chance to get to play the closest thing we have to Indiana Jones is welcome. What do you guys think about Monterey's stat line?
Yeah,
That's strong.
he has draw 1 card on him an awful lot, and he has gain 1 resource on him an awful lot as well.
Let's compare to Norman. We just went over Norman. Why, Nate, am I going for Monterey but not for Norman?
I think the big reason would be that Norman requires setup to get going, whereas Monterey Jack requires you to move. And
just move, yeah.
I'm struggling to find a scenario where you don't move. It's not even specifically move, it's just be at another location.
Okay, yeah, I gotcha. Well, also Monterey Jack, I noticed that he has built in like a very good stat in enemy handling and a very good stat in investigation. Which is kind of the 2 things you need to play to win Arkham Horror the card game.
Very true.
Okay.
And rogues are no strangers to having 1 willpower.
1 willpower is definitely a weakness, but I don't know if it compensates for having 4 intellect and 5 agility. That's very, very good. The ability to discover clues at all but the highest shroud locations just by taking a regular old investigate action is very good. And then if you happen to draw enemies, chances are that Monterey Jack will easily escape them with 5 agility, considering enemies do tend to have slightly lower evade values than fight values. So that 5 is going to go a little bit further than, say, a comparable 5 in combat. Combat is a little bit weak, but probably still enough to kill a rat if necessary, and keep on moving. Again, his response, the ability to, as long as you move once a turn, you're drawing a card or gaining a resource. That's pretty good.
Yeah, he's at worst, if you move, you're a Jenny. Or you can draw a card. Yeah. But if you're 2 locations away, you just get to do both for some reason. Because, value.
Well, compared to Norman, once again, because Norman occupies a similar space in that, he has high intellect, and we discussed him as being a clue getter. Or like Norman, you gotta like set it up. You know, you gotta have. I mean, if you play the card off the top of your deck, you're effectively getting a draw and a resource by playing that card for cheaper. But you're not always gonna do it. Where like Monterey, it's just gonna happen by playing Arkham Horror the card game. Yeah, it doesn't require a lot of setup. So let's see. That stat line is really good. I mean, Ursula, I think, is actually one of the strongest stat lines in the game because I think combat is the one stat you can like completely ignore, and do well at this game. So like Ursula had 4 intellect and 4 agility. Monterey's got 4 and 5, but he does have to worry about his willpower. So, but he's up there with Ursula when it comes to like very strong stat lines. Yeah.
Yeah, and the secret card pool sort of implies that the Investigator has a decent willpower. There isn't a ton of willpower stat boosting that you can get from the secret card pool, other than just brute forcing the problem with enough skill cards or something like that, or enough icons.
Yeah, that's true. So like Monterey he needs to go in with a plan for dealing with Frozen Fear.
Mm-hmm. It sort of reminds me of like Joe Diamond in that regard. Like Joe has a similar problem like that too, where he's kind of all in on those stats, and he can't rely on the secret cards to really help him out. So
yeah, that's true.
But we did receive higher education level 0 in the Harvey Walter starter deck, and so if you're generating enough resources by moving around the board, if you need to plug in enough resources to higher education to pass a test, that's one solution.
That's true.
Yeah, and there's cards like does logical reasoning take out Frozen in Fear?
Oh, terror card. I think it might.
I think it does. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, that seems like a good pick for one of Monterey's 5 secret cards because it gives him willpower icons. It helps with his 6 sanity, which for a seeker that's kind of low, and yeah, it helps him deal with certain specific treacheries like Frozen Fear. Frozen Fear is particularly nasty because your friends can't help you with Frozen Fear, unlike most other treacheries that hang out in your threat area.
Yeah, it's always like the de facto card that we reference with low willpower for that reason.
Oh, of course,
It's so nasty.
I mean, Rotting Remains, yeah, it's a thing, but it's not that much of a thing. But Frozen Fear, oh god, yeah, that's the one we like complain about. You know, that's the one that causes us to cry.
So before we started recording, you were talking about probably the main weakness of Monterey Jack is a player simply trying to trigger that response too often.
Movement often takes actions. The benefit of Monterey's ability can be reduced down to actions. So if you're spending 2 actions moving and you get a resource and a card because you spent those 2 actions moving, the weakness is you can kind of get tunnel visioned into like trying to activate Monterey's ability every turn, that you end up taking move actions that you don't really need to take in order to get the action equivalent back in cards and resources. So what I'm saying is you could either take 2 actions moving for no reason, or you can just stay where you are, a better location, and just draw and gain a resource, or do a million other things. That's what I'm getting at, is if you tunnel vision on his ability, like, you can kind of spend lots of actions just dirtling around, just for the sake of triggering it.
And you can sort of do the same thing in deck building, too. You can sort of over-focus on trying to move around the map when, your priority should really be getting clues and evading whatever enemy you draw from the encounter deck.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're spending a lot of resources moving for the sake of moving, just to trigger his ability. You're not really getting anywhere.
Yeah, I think another thing to consider too with Monterey Jack is what are you doing with those resources? I think higher education could be a really good option, like you were saying, Man from Lang, but you have plenty of other options that you could use those resources in. Hyper awareness or what have you, composures.
Well, especially once he gains some XP, we know exactly where all those resources are going to be going.
Yeah, I was trying to not go there, but yeah.
We don't have to go there. We haven't completely gone there. We've approached the location, but we could pull back.
The line is in the horizon.
Yeah, we could pull back. We can go another direction with this, guys. We don't have to go there.
Would you say that we could tug the twine in the other direction?
God damn it, Nate.
So yeah, I think it's pretty clear that as far as stat lines go, Monterey Jack has a very good one.
Yeah.
The willpower is a bit of an issue, but there are solutions to deal with it. Frozen in Fear is a big threat, but Seekers do have logical reasoning which can cancel it outright, which, you know, a lot of rogues don't even have that option. They have to still take a willpower skill test to get rid of it, which when you're already at 1 or 2 willpower, that's going to be tough. Better just to cancel it outright. 4 intellect, of course, is amazing for discovering clues, and 5 agility gives you a very easy way to avoid most enemies. And then basically you just need to play Monterey, and you're going to gain cards and resources as you go. And like you said, there hasn't been a scenario yet that plops the investigators on the map and they don't go anywhere else. So even if you just play the game, you are going to be gaining resources and cards over the course of that scenario. And if you happen to draw an Elder Sign during your turn, you get more cards and resources for doing very little. And away you go. That brings us to Monterey Jack's deck size, which is 30. Deck building options: Rogue cards level 0, Seeker cards level 1 to 5, Neutral cards level 0 to 5, and up to 5 other Seeker cards level 0. Deck building requirements that do not count towards his deck size include the Trusty Bullwhip and Buried Secrets and 1 basic weakness. So what do we think about his card pool?
It's very strong.
It's very strong. Yeah, it's very, very strong. You're combining the class that likes to do combos with the class that likes to draw cards.
Oh, yeah.
And sandwiching those together makes your combos very consistent.
There aren't a whole lot of Seeker cards that are absolutely essential at level 0. I mean, there are plenty of great level 0 Seeker cards, but it's not quite like Norman, where you're missing out on a whole lot by being restricted to 5 Seeker cards. Because there's level 1 versions of, say, Magnifying Glass and lots of other things. There are some pretty good... I mean, the Rogue level 0 is actually more of a restriction, because there are some decent level 0 Rogue cards, but not like a zillion of them. You know, like the Rogue weapons, for example. The level 0 ones aren't that great. And Rogue's best allies are all 3 XP. Besides Leo DeLuca, of course. Oh, Leo DeLuca. That's what you spend your resources on.
Yeah, Leo's a good choice. Man,
Yeah.
if Monterey Jack could take Lola Santiago, my brain would hurt.
Well, we had that Investigator. That was Trish.
That,
you know.
My brain still hurts from Trish. Don't even get me started. Trish is a phenomenal investigator, and she has like a very similar card pool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and a pretty similar stat line too. She's like what, 2 willpower, 4 intellect.
Yeah, she's a
combat,
2/4/2/4.
4. Yeah, that's also incredibly strong.
At this point, the card pools in both Seeker and Rogue are so large that there are just so many good options. I mean, you've got cards like, if you're looking at 5 Seeker cards, you've got Magnifying Glass. If you want to gain even more resources, you've got Dr. Mylan Christopher. Since Monterey is going to be moving around a lot, you've got things like Field Work, which just boost his tests as long as you've moved. Rogue cards, you've got Lone Wolf, since he's probably going to be pressing ahead, leaving other people behind. Lots of great Rogue cards that we've seen lately. Things like, you've got a classic like Backstab that allows you to attack with your agility if necessary, but we also saw Breaking and Entering recently during the Innsmouth Conspiracy that allows you to add your agility and your intellect together. So if you do have to face a tough location, rogues generate resources, and there's always Faustian Bargain if you need it. So
yeah, exactly.
There's so many powerful cards that you get to throw together that it's I think you're really spoiled for choice. And we haven't even discussed skills like quick thinking to get even more extra actions.
So unlike Mystic, Mystic wants to take the base shriveling and then upgrade that shriveling. So that's going to require some use of those level 0 slots in an investigator like Norman. Whereas a lot of rogue cards, you have the level 0 version and then you just dump it because you have a lot of very strong XP rogue cards that you don't upgrade into. So what I'm getting at is that his deck building doesn't feel as restrictive as, say, Norman Withers does.
Yeah, you're not like as pressed to do something with those seeker slots like you are with Norman. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And also, there's a decent amount of overlap between Rogue and Seeker at level 0. Like you have Magnifying Glass in one hand, you have Lockpicks in the other. So they do similar things. An asset that lets you get clues more. You're more likely to get clues if you have one of these. So if you don't want to spend your slots on Magnifying Glass, you can always play Lockpicks, and you're good. If you don't want to play Shortcut, you can always play Elusive. I'm just saying there's enough. There's a good amount of overlap between Rogue and Seeker that you can kind of pick what you want without feeling like you're missing a crucial level 0 Seeker card.
Yeah, I think the other thing about Monterey Jack versus Norman too is that Norman actually has to make a decision in deck building what stats he's going to use.
Oh, that's true.
Jack does not have that decision whatsoever. He is using his intellect and he is using his agility.
That's true. And both his classes fully support that.
Fully support that, right. Whereas the Mystic class kind of sways you in one way or the other.
It's true.
So, like you said, the two classes also complement each other really well at level 0.
Well, we're going to have a discussion about what happens after level 0, because I have to say, as much as I was looking forward to Monterey Jack's release in the game, I haven't been that inspired to build a deck around him because, man, oh man, Aeon Chart exists, Ariadne's Twine exists, Hiking Boots exist, and just seem to mesh so well with what Monterey Jack is doing. And we gave Aeon Chart a well-deserved curse token during a review of the player cards in the Edge of the Earth Investigator expansion because it just generates so much action advantage. Ariadne's Twine basically just converts all those resources that you're getting from moving into more actions, which allow you to continue to move to gain. It's just the feedback loop just piles on the extra actions. And then, of course, if you need even more, you've got Hiking Boots. And that's all for 8 XP, especially if you're playing the Underworld support version of Monterey Jack. So as much as I really want to like Monterey Jack, I kind of also dislike Monterey Jack simply because of the state of the Seeker slash I guess mainly Seeker card pool, especially when you're looking at upgrades. What do you guys think?
Seekers have gotten a lot of additional action engines that give extra moves, extra clues, extra actions, extra fast actions, and they all synergize together. Pathfinder, Pendant of the Queen, Hiking Boots, Aeon Chart. They all work together, and they all work with Monterey's ability too. So, but the problem is, if you decide to take the high road and not use those, you're kind of shutting off Monterey's ability when you're spending an action to use your legs to move. So you're kind of in a trap there, because you can't win. You have to you pretty much have to accept that deal with the devil and take a lot of very, very powerful, combinations of movement cards and extra action cards, which also happen to work with Monterey. Or you can't, and then Monterey kind of gets a little inefficient because you got to spend all those actions moving.
Yeah, Monterey Jack reminds me a lot of Rex Murphy, in that they both affect the game in such a way that it can basically just invalidate every other investigator at the table, because the Monterey Jack player does all the things, grabs all the clues, draws all the cards, gains all the resources, evades the enemy, and then everyone just kind of follows behind him. And in a co-op game, that just creates an experience of one player is doing all the things, and then everyone else is just kind of like their lackey, and you're shining that spotlight a little too bright on Monterey.
That's true.
The card pool really does reinforce that style of gameplay. Like they included all these cards in the box with him, so they clearly intended you to play with them.
Do you see a Monterey Jack build that someone like myself could play that does not just take all of the best cards in class, dump them in a deck, and fire and forget?
In my opinion, not really. Because the way his ability works and the way that Arkham works, in the like how the maps are structured, like you're always going to be moving. So even if you're not really building around it, like Pathfinder and Shortcut are still cards that you would play even if you weren't playing Monterey Jack, because they're already good enough as they are. So just slapping extra benefit on those cards, reinforces that strategy.
Maybe you could have fun playing a lot of underrated Seeker cards that either move clues around or let you investigate remotely. I'm talking like Seeking Answers or Janae Beauregard. If you did something like that and you weren't laser focused on getting additional effort out of your actions, like maybe I could see something like that working out for you. So the idea being like, okay, you avoid that problem of moving for movement's sake just to trigger Monterey's ability. But let's say you moved from a 4-shroud location to a 2-shroud location, and then you played Seeking Answers and you leveraged that lower shroud to discover clues from a remote location. You didn't get you didn't get a whole lot of like additional effort out of that. You just kind of moved the shroud around a little bit. Maybe something like that. Maybe.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking something like that too. I could see something like that working where you like maybe quick study to get like a punch in on a rat or something like that, and then you move
or pass willpower tests.
Or pass a willpower test. Yeah, something along those lines. But I honestly don't know how many players are gonna do that. To be totally honest,
ability is very clear. Like, is like we're gonna reward you for playing the broken Seeker stuff, and.
Yeah, I guess that's my biggest problem with it is you're basically being rewarded for playing all of the busted Seeker cards, and personally I don't find that interesting, and it kind of annoys me that basically one investigator in this box has been taken out just by the busted nature of the Seeker card pool, that you're just incentivized to play all of that stuff, and there might be something else in there, but you're sort of hobbling yourself just not to play it. And even, you look at, okay, so Monterey Jack is technically supposed to be balanced by his 1 willpower, but as soon as you gain experience, you're only spending 8 to get, pick up a copy of the Twine, the Chart, and the Boots. Then you can spend, even if you're playing with the list of taboos, you can pick up Higher Education 3, even if you're spending an extra 3 XP on it, to turn all of those resources that you are generating into willpower bonuses. And even if that fails, you've got Forewarned in your back pocket and Logical Reasoning.
Well, because you're drawing lots of cards, you can also just pack a bunch of question marks, in your deck, like Inquiring Mind, for example. And you're drawing a lot, so you're drawing more icons than normal. So
it just seems like it's a perfect storm of all the good stuff with relatively no downside to it.
Yeah. And even if you don't min-max it, like his ability just rewards you for playing the game. It's like Norman kind of does the same thing to an extent, but it does ask you to build your deck around it. It does ask you to, consider that
you're not going to fire it every turn by itself. If a skill card is on top of your deck, his ability turns off.
Yeah, and like we said, he has that forced effect that makes you draw weaknesses as well. So there are times where that can bite you in the ass, but Jack is all upside, and I just kind of question why it's designed that way. Because they've done such a good job of making the investigators have really interesting effects, and Jack's effect is just, it just feels like min-maxing.
To sum up, if you are playing Monterey Jack and you're just looking for some quick and easy upgrades, if you go for the Twine, Aeon Chart, and Hiking Boots, you're already doing pretty well, and pretty much everything after that is just gravy. If you're looking for a different Jack build, well, let me know when you find it, because I'd be curious to play that version of Jack. But right now, the Twine, the Chart, and the Boots seems to be dominating over on Arkham DB. Speaking of Jack's signature cards, let's take a look at the Trusty Bullwhip and Buried Secrets. Trusty Bullwhip is a 2-cost asset with 2 agility skill icons and a wild skill icon, item, weapon, and melee traits. It is fast, Monterey Jack deck only, as though Jack needed more free actions in his arsenal. As an action, you can fight. This attack uses agility instead of combat. If this attack succeeds, you may exhaust Trusty Bullwhip to either automatically evade the attacked enemy or deal +1 damage for this attack, and it takes up a hand slot. What do we think about the Bullwhip?
Why is it fast? It's already good.
Yeah,
it's already good.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. Like, you can whip it out at any time and just whoosh, but like, oh my god, is this pushed?
It doesn't need the extra damage. It really doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
No.
It's so good. It's such a good signature card.
Just the fact that he could use it to use his just to fight with his agility instead of his combat, and then get a free evade out of it. You're already getting 2 actions worth of effort.
Yeah, why does a bullwhip do the same amount of damage as a gun?
That's a really good question. I mean, remember classically in Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones used a gun to do 2 damage to a guy.
And Monterey Jack is holding a gun in the artwork.
That's right.
It's painful. Honestly, this card is really good.
Yeah, if it was just fast and you got to do fights with your agility and you get free evades out of it, that'd be good by itself.
Yeah, because that's essentially like, it's essentially evade against an enemy's fight rather than...
Yeah, exactly.
Which is cool. Comparing this to something like Roland's 38 Special...
Oh yeah, that just is it's just the modifier's bigger. You know, that's all that's special, right? It's not fast.
It costs more.
It costs more. It doesn't do any weird tricks, you know, like it just does 2
and
damage.
It's less flexible. Yeah, exactly.
And it has ammo. Well, you know, Seekers, like they have to give them fast stuff because anything that's not fast is too slow for them apparently. Yeah.
But I get where it's coming from thematically, but
yeah,
mechanically it's so pushed.
The auto evade, the +1 damage. Sure, you're not getting a bonus to your agility skill test, but you're already starting at a 5, which is pretty damn good. And then it's not like Jack's deck isn't going to have some agility skill icons in it if you need to happen to push it a little bit more. So yeah, this is pretty damn good. Jack's signature weakness is Buried Secrets. Weakness, mystery, revelation. Put buried secrets into play in your threat area. If your location can be investigated, you cannot move except by scenario card effects. As an action, you can investigate if you succeed instead of discovering clues. Discard buried secrets. If you fail, you may take 2 horror to shuffle it into your deck. Not very impactful.
Not really. It's only 1 action to get out of. And regardless of whether you succeed or fail, you get out of it.
You can choose to take a second action if you want to, because it's if you may take 2 horror
right
into your deck. Yeah.
why did that text need to be there? The if you fail bit.
Mhm.
Like, it's not like Norman can just spend one action and shuffle his weakness back into his deck.
Well, Norman wouldn't want to do that, but yeah, case in point.
Yeah, it's like there's no out for
It's,
like a lot of other investigators.
I will say that
Yeah.
it does say that if your location can be investigated, so it doesn't mean if there are or aren't clues on it. You know, as
Right,
long as your
right.
location doesn't have like a locked door or something on it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It does have the text that kind of, prevents you from being totally locked. If you fail text wasn't there, I'd feel a lot better. But even then, like, compare this to Jenny's weakness, where you got to spend 2 actions for the investigate. Like
Not
a
to
normal
mention-
weakness.
And you got to move all the way across the map to go deal with it.
Yeah, signature weaknesses in this game are like all over the place, I swear. Like Mark Harrigan's. Like take 0 horror.
Yeah, I'm struck by the similarity between this and Ursula's weakness. I wonder if they were designed sort of at the same time, where Ursula's is like, you must move to a location or you have to shuffle it back into your deck, and this one is you have to basically investigate a location or you have to shuffle it back into your deck, and sort of same themes of exploration between the two main explorers. I don't think Jack's going to have much of a problem investigating most a location. It's like, take an action to discard this
Do
card.
what you already do.
Yeah, most of the time is like, okay, I investigate, I discard my weakness. I'm already generating so much action advantage from all the other cards in my deck that one action. I mean, why does this only take 1 action? Of all the investigators who can probably afford to take 2, Jack is one of them, and so it's not like it would slow him down that much. This just seems like they're giving him all the benefits for no reason. But
yeah, and the May effect too really kind of irks me a little bit, because it's like, if you fail, you decide when you take that 2 horror. It's not a forced effect where if there's at least some risk involved failing the test. If you fail, it's just another investigate check. If you really want it to be.
Are there any other investigators' weaknesses that have like an inherent like option to just bail out of it?
I mean, it does like prevent you from moving, unless you investigate. Yeah. But even still, like, if things are really going bad for you, like action 3, your 3rd investigate, you still fail, you just take the 2 horror, and it, at worst, it's your turn. Or it's like some investigators, their weakness just kills them. Somebody had a real soft spot for Monterey Jack, I think, when they were designing him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Somebody was, like, having a power fantasy. Yeah.
Yeah, somebody was like, I like Indiana Jones. I want people to play Indiana Jones.
That's going to do it for our look at Monterey Jack, the rogue investigator in the Edge of the Earth Investigator expansion. Not a great deal to say about Monterey besides all the stars align for him during the design process, and he has a great stat line, a great ability, one of arguably the most overpowered card pool combinations in the game.
Yep. All
of the very pushed secret cards work extremely well with him. Now, we don't give investigators ratings, primarily because I like them all. And I think we haven't, generally speaking, I think the design team has done a very good job of creating a very interesting group of investigators that all do pretty well. I don't think there has been a dud among them. I'm starting to have worries, though, when it comes to an investigator like Jack, who seems to have all upside and very little downside. Any thoughts?
Yeah, my issue with Jack is that, his ability to generate cards and resources just comes from playing the game and doing what you were already going to do anyway, but then just reinforcing it with the absurd card pool that he has access to just really amplifies his ridiculousness. And I really don't think he needed the parenthetical text on there at all.
No.
Like, if that wasn't there, he would still be really good.
Yeah.
But the fact that he just gets to, have the cake and eat it too is just ridiculous, in my opinion. It really does feel like the second coming of Rex Murphy.
Yeah, in fact, what's actually, thinking throughout this, like we just reviewed Norman, and if you think of Norman as like a clue getter, these two are in two different leagues, and they are literally in the same box, and at what they're good at, they're in different leagues, and that's really sad to see.
We came out of the Norman conversation with me feeling like, oh, I really want to build a Norman deck and try him out now. Like, this sounds fun. Whereas, like, we kind of just ragged on Jack for 25 minutes. But, I think it's pretty justified because this design just feels so obviously pushed. Versus, like, if Norman was broken because of some, obscure card interaction that essentially allowed him to nullify the encounter deck, that would be, I think, much more permissible, because it would probably require some setup and, whatever. But with Jack, it's just, I put Jack on the table and hit the ground running.
So do you think the design team will revisit Jack with the list of taboos? Now, I'm not convinced any changes they would make would rein him in to any extent, because I don't think the taboo list has done a particularly good job at reining in those power cards. But is there something they could do that could bring him back in line with, say, they did make that one change to Rex Murphy that so he doesn't get to trigger his ability as often as he does? Or do they simply need to tackle the twine chart combination, the boots, stuff like that, and bring those back into line, so that Jack isn't sort of just getting benefits all over the place?
I think it's I think you need to attack the Hydra at both heads. I think that reasonably you could remove the parenthetical from Jack and he would be a very serviceable investigator.
Yeah.
He has a very good stat line, and that's still a really good ability. Like we were saying, it's at worst Jenny, and it's at best a extra draw, which is still good. But the twine is just ridiculous in any investigator that can take those combination of cards, regardless of who it is. But the fact that Jack just pushes that to the nth degree is just, I think, kind of what broke the camel's back.
Yeah, in fact, that's, if I had to, in fact, something to build off of your point, Nate, is that if Monterey Jack were just a blank investigator with that card pool, that doesn't solve the problem of the trend of giving, especially Seekers, a juggernaut of extra actions and extra investigates and extra clues and extra enemy handling, and all of it is fast, and it all moves together, and then it all combines together very, very well, like a giant rolling ball, like from Raiders of the Lost Ark. I just did it. I brought it back to Raiders of the Lost Ark. But yeah, just crossing out that parenthetical text, even blanking, making Monterey a blank investigator is not going to solve the problem of the free movement and free clue getting and extra actions and fast actions and all this action chaining that is all coming together to make the secret card pool very, 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 very overpowered. So you got to attack that. What Monterey does is he's part of that juggernaut. His ability, is part of it. It's part of, I take moves and I get cards and I, use those cards and convert them into moves with shortcut, and it all works together. He's part of the evil empire, so to speak. He's part of the machine. But cross out the parenthetical text, and at least you'll get back into the realm of mortals.
Well, I guess we will wait and see. We have not yet received a new FAQ that takes into account all of the new player cards that we saw in the Edge of the Earth Investigator expansion. So we'll have to wait and see whether Jack gets toned down a little bit, or whether they attack both him and some of the Seeker cards that were released. Have you had a chance to play Jack? What do you think about him, and do you have a solution for Jack and his card pool? Let us know in the comments down below. We'd love to hear from you. And see how he does. We are slowly making our way through the investigators. We will be back with our look at the final two investigators in the box. We have Lily Chen, who is mystic but mostly guardian, and finally Bob Jenkins, who is a survivor but mostly rogue. So stay tuned for those. That's going to do it for this episode. If you enjoyed what you hear, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. If you need to contact me, I can be reached at manfromlang@gmail.com. I'm also on Twitter at manfromlang. Until the stars are right, keep your shotgun close and your elder sign closer. Take care out there, and happy investigating.